Hello, welcome to Extreme Gaming Podcast. My name is Trevor. Episode 234 today. Sorry, I cut the music off a little bit soon. That's because we're excited. We've got a special guest on. Who else have we got on the show today?
Great Gamer 25, and you can catch me on Gray's Green Room, and you can check that guy over there on the Trekway, which I end up having to appear on too. And of course, hi to our special guest there, but he'll announce himself.
Hey guys, looking forward to today. I'm Triptych. I'm just a community monitor who works on a Star Trek mod.
Excellent.
And therefore have a lot to say about it, I guess.
Oh, trust me, we're Gray and I, if we could get away with it, we would probably talk 2 hours Star Trek mods and all that stuff, but not everyone loves Star Trek as much as we do, so we will chew the fat a little bit on it for sure, because we do enjoy it. A couple of quick announcements as usual. If you can join our Discord, if you like gaming, if you like Star Trek, if you like general entertainment as well, because Gray's got his GGR, I've got the Trekway, and also on top of that, there is a bunch of stuff on there that we talk about. There's some subs there as well that people want to contribute towards the Discord, which has various perks and benefits as well. We now have a special handle as well because we're tier 3. So the easiest way, we used to say on Google, just search for us. Extreme Gaming Podcast. But we literally have a link which Gray will copy and paste into the Twitch chat, which is basically discord.gg/Extreme Gaming Podcast. So that should be good. We have some social nights that we like to do. The next social night, the last one was a good success, so thank you to those that came along. There was a good number of people in there, and we just we played some games. Triptych. We played. They can get crazy. Alcohol's optional, but it tends to be afternoon for the Americans, so I understand why it's not a good idea to drink at 2 p.m. But in the UK, it's much later, so some people may have been drinking.
We played what Jack in the Box, right, or whatever it was.
Jack in the Box, no Jackbox party games. Jack in the Box. Oh my.
And then we did Scriblio, and we were having a good old time. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had like 8-9 people. So
what I'll do actually 2 seconds, even if it breaks the immersion. So Gray's super loud and I'm hard to hear. So what I will do is, that's probably why, because Gray's been turned up to 100%. That's 200%. That's annoying.
Yeah, that could do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You can tell me how that sounds like in a moment, Shell. Right. Excellent. So we have another social night next month where we'll just play silly games. July 21st, 7 p.m. GMT. And then also as well, each week we have some shows that we watch. We have a Red Dwarf night on the Tuesday. If you're a Star Trek fan, you'll likely be a Red Dwarf fan as well, kind of inspired by one another. And then right after that, for those that do like the proper diehard sci-fi, we will alternate between either 1 week watching TOS, the original series, Star Trek, and then a week after, the alternate weeks, Battlestar Galactica. So that's optional. Everything's in the event section anyway. And of course, if you're a Twitch subscriber or a Twitch viewer, and you do probably have a Prime sub as well, if you're not using it, throw it this way. But yeah, the most important thing to kick off with is probably our special guest, Triptych, and I'll let Gray take over now, and by all means, Triptych can tell us about himself. Feel free to plug your Discord as well, mate. And we'll go from there. But yeah, Gray.
A little quick backstory. I've always liked Star Trek games. Unfortunately, there's not that many good Star Trek games. But one of the things that I really appreciated was way back, goes back like 20 years now. They came out with Star Trek Armada and Star Trek Armada 2, which I still think were the best all-around Star Trek games that they ever did. And it was a strategy game, basically, but it was a load of fun. Being able to build your ships, Starfleet ships, or the other races, and have a good old time. And then way back then, or however many years it was, at least 10 or more, they came out with a Fleet Ops mod, which I never just kind of ran into by accident. And I remember loading the mod up and then putting it in the game, going like, "Wow, this is different." So I really had a good time with it. I thought the people that created it, really did a good job, and it really kind of enhanced the game. Now, since those 10 or 15 years ago to now, Triptych is running a Discord that's called Starfleet, Star Trek Fleet Ops. And they've done a lot of things with the mods. So they've improved the mod, they've made new mods, and they've gone and remastered and all kinds of crazy stuff. And Triptych's going to speak about that. So that's why I had him on, so we can kind of discuss it a little bit and so forth. So there you go, Triptych.
Yeah, well, shoot, that's a lot of it. Yeah, the first time I ever played Fleet Ops was, I was in high school back then, so that I think it was around like 2003-ish.
Yeah.
And like a friend of my dad's had given me a box of old CDs and it was in there. And I had a friend over and I was like, "Hey, what would be interesting? We could play a multiplayer strategy game that neither of us have ever played before and just see who wins, like who can figure out how to play the game first." And I was like, "Let's grab this Armada 2." And like, I didn't even know Star Trek that back then. And then we found the Fleet Operations mod, which, it had started development like within a year after Armada 2 was out. There were so many people just adding models to the game back then and, whatever they wanted. And so we played, and back then there was a race called the Noxter that they had added temporarily. They were sort of like a template over 8472. And, they had turrets that could move, and my friend completely annihilated me. And that was my introduction to community mods being horribly unbalanced and just sort of like, very nerd fun.
I think the other thing too is the mod that came out originally, 15, 20 years ago, there wasn't a lot of modding going on back then. There was some, but it was like real under the radar kind of stuff, and not everybody knew about it.
It was a much simpler time, right? Like all these RTSs were coming out with experimental features like the warp system in Armada 2, traveling faster around the map, and the verticality, which wasn't a super good implementation of that. It was great that they tried it, but most people would just use it to fly their ships down to the bottom or all the way up to the top to get around turrets. Yeah, but at the time it was surprisingly easy to add a ship into the game. It's actually a very simple code base for Armada 2. Just a few text files and a model and some hard points and stuff, and you can get it in. Of course, the tools to modify those models are arcane and very old. You place a series of hard points on the model, and they have to be facing the right direction. And then you define, like, every time a weapon fires at a ship, which hard points it should hit, where the weapon should fire from. And like, I personally am still not good with that stuff to this day, but there's some hardcore like model makers who have just kept on adding Star Trek models. And as time goes on, there's never going to be a shortage of Star Trek models. Actually these days we can port Star Trek Online models like out of Star Trek Online and into the mod if we want. And I think our Sovereign model, I believe our most recent one was actually a port done by Drazon. He's not going to be happy with me putting words in his mouth, but I know he can pull any Star Trek Online model you want and put it in the game, which is amazing.
Wow. That is kind of cool because there's some good models.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's plenty of guys who they never publish their work. They just have their own little copy of the mod, and they're like, and also I added like these 3 ships, and I gave them 5,000 hit points and 10 phaser batteries, and they kill everything all at once, and they just play that by themselves.
Do you find that when you ended up being, I don't know how long ago you became more involved like you are now? It's been a few years or no?
About 9 years now.
Oh,
before that, I would make maps sometimes, and I was definitely playing the mod, but I actually started making my own version, 2015-ish, I want to say, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the maps because that was the only one and only time, and I've never done it again. When I played Star Trek Armada 2, I liked it so much I actually did create a map, and I remember uploading it, and people were downloading the map and all this stuff. But I never attempted anything like that again. But it was fun.
I've got a question for you boys. I think Gray's definitely into his modding. He's probably alluded to that triptych. The guy absolutely loves modding. There's a running joke with him as well, but we won't embarrass him. And obviously, okay. We're all Star Trek fans here, so it makes sense for you guys to put the two together. What is it about not only modding, but modding Star Trek games that you enjoy? Because for me, right, I like Star Trek games, but I don't mod. I'm vanilla. I'm really dull. What can I say? And the only I don't like modding anything, even if it's using something like Nexus, because, for example, Starfield was a good example. Yeah, when it came out, it was missing simple things like HDR, an adjustable FOV, DLSS, which, considering it's a Bethesda game and it's janky as hell, you really needed that extra grunt. And it was missing simple stuff that Gray just went away and he modded stuff. He found these mods via Nexus and he put them in. And I said, no, I want the developer, even if it's janky, I want to play it the way it was intended, vanilla, and hopefully they improve things, which they did. So when it comes to Star Trek, is it a case of you enjoy doing it and you like to improve things, or were some of the Star Trek games you played either average or shit that you had to put these mods in to improve them? Which was it, Triptych, for you?
I mean, you have to be at least a tiny bit dissatisfied with the current game if you want to change it, right? Honestly, for me, I mean, I wanted to be a game designer, high school and early college. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And then I learned that every high school guy wants to be a game designer at least once, and how competitive it was. And so I ended up, going off and being an engineer instead. And then, it was always my dream, though, to work on games. And so in this case, Fleet Operations is just a really fantastic platform. Like the guys who did it, they collected some really high quality models, and they made some. I mean, the Armada 2 engine is, well, it's ancient, it's very old, and it's very simple. And as a result, like the Fleet Ops devs built a whole bunch of tools onto it. Like, they added some very simple additions to it that make it a lot easier to mod. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was just. And they developed it for, a good 10, 11 years. And then they moved on to another project, which is, they're still off there somewhere working on it, but it's become sort of a background project for them. And the fact that they had left Fleet Ops in a pretty good state, but it was enough to dream. It was like, oh, but what if you also did this? And the engine is very simple, but it's also very flexible, which means if you can get creative with it, you can do quite a lot of things with it. Like, basic example, I wanted command ships. I was like, I want some command ship. I want you to build command ships like a Galaxy or a Sovereign, and I wanted to give a bonus to nearby allies. Well, the game doesn't support that, but the game does support your ship firing an invisible weapon every 3 seconds that gives them an attack speed bonus for 3 seconds. And so that's what I did. Every command ship shoots all of the other ships nearby every 3 seconds with an attack buff that lasts 3 seconds. And janky, and the Fleet Ops devs had already worked out quite a lot of janky stuff for that. Like torpedoes dealing more damage to large ships, pulse weapon, and like missing small ships and pulse weapons, and a lot of passives, because the original game doesn't really have a rock, paper, scissors to it. Like, and that's the thing, like Armada 2 itself we give it a ton of respect because it was a pioneer, right? Like, at the time it was made, RTS games were so new, and it was very, very creative and fantastic. And also, the joy of playing with your actual Star Trek ships, flying them around and shooting them is, you were already doing that with your imagination when you watched the shows, but now you could also play it.
Triptych, you were doing it in real life. Just admit it. You were doing the sound effects as well. You were giving it pew pew and red alert. And,
yeah, I had the micro machines for sure. But also, the Armada 2 game itself is like, by modern standards, very simple. There aren't ships that deal extra damage to certain types of ship. And the fleet ups devs, they added all of that. They added long range ships, short range ships, bonuses versus big ships and little ships and support ships and ships that do extra damage to support ships. Like, they really built a framework that was fun to work with.
I always remember playing the game because a lot of it was based on, again, like you were saying, some short range ships, some long range ships. So I always remember having, I think it was the steam runners in the back because they had long range torpedoes and stuff. And then you would have the Kiras more up front and some of the larger ships like in the middle or whatever. It was like, it did take some strategy, but it was fun just watching your favorite ships actually do stuff. And the sound effects were pretty much on point with most everything.
Yeah, some of the sound effects.
I mean, the only thing maybe that the funny thing is though is the only thing I didn't do though, and that's just because it's me, is I played almost 95% Starfleet. I rarely ever played Romulan or Klingon. I did
that's
little.
Most people. That's most people, Greg.
Yeah, it's kind of just like I gotta be Starfleet. But well, the next question I guess I kind of want to ask is, now that it's been so many more years, when did I guess to be called a more modern version of the Fleet Ops or the remastered or whatever, when did that come into existence?
Oh, well, very gradually. I mean, we would have many periods of time where I think a lot of the guys are similar to me, where it's just like it's their hobby that keeps in the background. And so many guys will just sort of drop off for a year or even two. And then one day they'll just show up and be like, I remembered Fleet Ops exists and I have my old files, and I'm going to do this with it. I think a big part of it was, well, for the graphics, when Drazon started updating textures, he was like, I can make things that look better and sound better than this. He's like, this engine actually supports like higher res textures than we're using right now. And some of that was like, we had concerns with computers being able to handle it back then, because even though your computer is vastly stronger than needs to be to run the program, it is a single threaded CPU gated game from 2001. Like, the engine will still run slowly if you do too much with it. It has like a 512 megabyte RAM limit, which the Fleet Ups devs like wrote a wrapper that expands the RAM limit to 2 gigs. Even though it's old, we have performance anxiety. Like, we're worried about it lagging out on people's computers, and so that was part of it. Where eventually Drazon was like, computers can handle bigger textures now.
When GOG came out with the Windows version of the game, because nobody could run it on modern Windows, so GOG came out with it, and of course I bought both of them. Did they do anything to the game to make it look any better, or they just simply made it run on Windows and left it alone?
I don't think they changed any of the assets. There might be some UI scaling. I would have to compare it to the old one. Like, my Armada CD version doesn't really work effectively on this computer. So I wouldn't know for sure, but it's certainly stable. Like, the GOG version is very stable, which is great for newer PCs, because I don't know what they did with it, but they made it run.
I've got a question for you, Triptych. Another one. Is it just Fleet Ops you mostly play / mod in the Star Trek gaming universe, or do you dabble in other things as well?
Fleet Ops is the only one I've done.
Right.
I mean, I play other games, but it's, and when you're programming, you learn a language, and then, like, if you learn Java or C++, you could then take that to another place and still know how to do it.
Yeah.
But with or even if you were doing newer games, you'd learn Agile, or you'd learn, the engine, like Unreal. With Armada 2, I'm learning how to make modifications to like this very specific old engine. So my modding skills don't really translate to any other game. Like, obviously the textures and the models and like the skills the other guys have do, but like I wouldn't be any good at modding any other game, honestly.
So what other Star Trek games do you play? Do you like playing just outside the modern scene? I'm assuming Fleet Ops would be your number one, but is there any others that you you dabble in that you could give me like a top 3 or something?
Oh boy. Well, I did play a fair bit of the Star Trek Armada 3, The Sins of a Solar Empire mod when they were coming around their final release and they were asking for testers. And I was like, oh, look, it's another Star Trek strategy game. And that was, I mean, most of my interest in that would be digging into all the details of the balance design and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly strategy games for me. I've definitely played like older games. I did play some Bridge Commander back in the day.
Oh,
Bridge Commander was cool. I like Bridge Commander.
Yeah.
That was one of the few I liked that came out.
No Academy, or was that a thing as well? I like that because of the cutscenes.
I like
Academy.
sure.
I'll tell you what other Star Trek game I've played. I've played Starfleet Battles.
I haven't played that.
Wow.
Pencil and paper from like the 70s or 80s.
Oh wow.
Like X-grid tile-based game where you print out a sheet like BattleTech, and when you do damage to something, you cross out the box for the hit point.
Wow.
That game is wild. It's complicated and like it feels so old, but you can also tell that people loved the IP when they made this. Like they would take things like if something happened on the TV show, they would put it in the game for lore accuracy. Like there's a section in the rule set for like legendary crew members, and it's basically like the TOS crew. And it was like the legendary captain, who's basically Kirk, has a special ability where like when his ship dies, you roll a 6-sided die, and if you roll a 6, he teleports to and commandeers the closest enemy ship. He just takes it over. I was like,
there you go.
These guys were watching the shows when they made this game.
I haven't played Fleet Ops. That's one of the games that I haven't played. I'll be honest with you, it was never on my my radar. But I mean, I played several games like Armada, all the Armada games. It's one of my favorites. I played Elite Force. What was called Elite Force, wasn't it? The FPS game. Very kind of Voyager-esque that as well. I enjoyed that. Academy for the cutscenes, a little bit of Bridge Commander, but I was telling Triptych the last time briefly, if you like RTS games, I played Birth of the Federation, which I absolutely adore. It is an RTS game. It is top-down 2D, but I'm not really an RTS guy. That's probably why I didn't play Fleet Ops. However, that's why I like things like Armada. Like, I need my 3D shiny graphics and the pew-pew. But I played this regardless, and now I find, and you probably, this will be easy for you, that when you play these old games now, and not just Star Trek games, loads of old games, that they don't always play well on modern Windows 10 and 11 systems, and you're having to, like, you're talking about the RAM limit there, and it having to be moved from 256 to like 2 gig, and you have to find workarounds for that, compatibility mode, and it doesn't always work. So you know the pain. This will be easy for you though. Like all these things you have to do to get these old games up and running, and sometimes there guys like you are out there to make people's lives easier, and sometimes some of your games don't have this option and you're screwed. So
well, and I can say on that topic, the GOG release was fantastic for that.
It really
like
helps.
the GOG version of Armada 2 is much more stable than most other games of that era. Because
I waited a long time for that too, because I used to go back to Armada every so often and play it with the Fleet Ops mod or whatever. But then all of a sudden it wouldn't run anymore, and then for like I don't know what it was, at least a few years, you're dead in the water pretty much. Or you have to try to find the CD, and then you have to hope it maybe plays, and blah, blah, blah. So when GOG announced that they were going to re-release these, but it'll play on Windows, I went, oh, about time.
That was about 8 years ago, I believe, 2016 maybe. They released a bunch of Star Trek games, which I'm going to...
GOG?
Yeah, well, was it
No,
GOG
the
or
Armadas
Steam?
were recent.
So no, this might be Steam then. There's a bunch of Star Trek games that were released for more modern systems. If it wasn't GOG, it's one of the launchers. I'll find out later. But it makes a lot of these games, like your Bridge Commanders, like Academy, Fleet Ops, maybe in there. I don't remember. It makes them a lot easier to run. And I'm at the moment, as part of the Trekway YouTube and Twitch and stuff we have going at the moment. We do a bunch of stuff on that. We do reviews, we do opinion pieces, but we also play Star Trek gaming triptychs. So at the moment, we are playing Resurgence, which is hit or miss. I must admit, we're almost at the end of that. I'm enjoying the story, but the graphics are a bit shit. Like they're not the best. It looks like half the characters permanently have the Rock's people's eyebrow permanently raised. The inside their mouths are completely white. Do you know what it reminds me of? A game that I'm gutted, I'm devastated isn't better than it is, and it's just my opinion for those that really love this game. Star Trek Online. This is such an old engine. They upgraded it once, and then it's a small studio, not much money, I get it. But the graphics in terms of the ships and the space battles are excellent, no qualms. As soon as you go on a planet, it's you want to throw it up in a basket. It's not just that they look awful there. It's the mechanics for moving are awful as well. And Gray and I go back every now and again and check it out to see if it's any better. And unfortunately, it's not. The game needs overhauled. Yeah. I should be all over that because I'm a massive Trekkie, but unfortunately, I'm not. So that's why it's not on the channel. But I would definitely say, if you like your RTS games, definitely try Birth of the Federation if you can get it running, because a lot of fun. Great. Any more points or questions on your end about kind of mods, Star Trek mods, games before we move on?
What I want to try to understand or to point out to people that might want to get into this. First of all, you definitely want to mention your Discord, because Discord really helps everybody that I'm having problems modding. What did I do wrong? And you guys can answer it or whatever. That's one point. The other point is we're talking about what I thought was about 3 different mods. There's the Fleet Ops that was remastered. There's a Tactical Maneuvers, I believe, that you're mostly involved with, right? And then there's another one called Roots. And from what you were telling me off the air, those 3 sound like the ones I'd be most interested in, but probably even more would be knowing what is the differences between the 3, especially with Tactical Maneuvers and with Roots. So if you could kind of explain, what the big differences are between all the 3 of them.
If I can plug this without getting suddenly complicated. So effectively, on the server, we have a series of several different modders, and none of us are like an official team. Everybody has their own individual project that they work on. We just share assets sometimes. So there is the original Fleet Operations, which is a little tricky to get working. I have an instruction video on YouTube. I will find some assets and I can provide those maybe on this Discord. A lot of the time I just say hey, you can come ask me and I'll tell you, or you can just Google it and you will eventually find it if you care hard enough. But then Drazon made his remastered, which is all of his new textures, and that is the regular Fleet Operations install. And then a modder called Jan B made the Roots mod. The Roots mod is much simpler, and it's basically on it's more like Armada 1 is the idea, but with all the fancy graphics and everything. And he actually made an entire campaign, an entire set of 3 different campaigns, I believe, that you can play through in that. And that one is available on ModDB, and that is an actual installer. So you just have to have the GOG version and then get the installer off of ModDB, and you can just install it and play it. So he made some great strides in making it easier for people to access. And I work on the Tactical Maneuvers mod, which was originally a balance update for Fleet Ops. And I've made a ton of AI improvements because we realized a lot of people were playing single player against the AI. So that was where I needed to focus a lot of attention. And I did things like the command shift. So I've added quite a lot of, after 9 years, the balance update has become basically a total overhaul. And recently, with Jan B's help, I also created an installer. So you can go find it on ModDB, and you can just, if you have the GOG version, which is $10 currently, and then you get the installer, you can just run it and you'll have it and it'll work just fine.
In particular, since you're mostly familiar with Tactical Maneuver, since you work on it, what would be the biggest differences between the old Armada / Fleet Ops and yours?
Well, once again, it's dangerous to ask me that question. I've done so many things. I've done slight rebalances to like 95% of the code. So there's like when you have a strategy game, some strategies are eventually going to become underpowered or overpowered. But you kind of need players testing it in order to find out what those are. So, and there's also, it's a very complicated game. There are 5 factions. There's Federation, Klingons, Romulans, Dominion, and Borg, and they play very differently from each other. And 2 of the factions, the Klingons and the Romulans, can cloak their ships, which from a strategy game perspective makes it really interesting and complex and very difficult to balance. And that was part of why I originally started, was because when the Fleet Ops devs were making changes, like it is a very solid balanced version, but when they stopped making changes and the community kept playing the last version, after a few years, we had discovered the crazy overpowered unstoppable strategies. So my hope is that hopefully Tactical Maneuvers is a better balance, and it offers like more strategic options that are viable and more interesting combinations. And I've added, like I said, I've added command ships. I've added like the Dominion fleet. The Dominion can now call in a fleet from the Gamma Quadrant. The Borg can now, when they reach the end of their tech tree, they can call in cubes from elsewhere. And a lot of things that I mentioned earlier, like you really, really want to make it true to the lore so that you can have that Star Trek feeling without making it unfair or unbalanced.
Yeah, without the Borg wiping out everybody. And, the game's over.
Right? Yeah. And occasionally people come on, they're like, I mean, how come Borg cubes can be killed in this game? By the lore, they should be unkillable. And it's like, yes, but also...
Well, even in the lore, they changed some of that, So
it's like
it can be armed.
Lore accurate Janeway ship.
I don't mod anything because I like I say I don't know how to, nor do I have the patience for it. But the only thing I would mod if I could would be to put Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9 even in that lovely catsuit into every Star Trek game that I played. Just even if she wasn't part of the. Put her on the bridge wallpaper behind you, behind the captain's chair. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
yeah. You could use that as a morale booster for the fleet. Anyway, I'm obviously being silly. We'll move on from there because, like I said, I could talk about that for ages and ages, but I know not everyone does. But we've got other gaming stuff as well that we want to talk about.
One quick thing. Go ahead and plug your Discord so that way people can.
Well, it is the Fleet Operations Discord. I need to find a valid invite link to it currently. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do me a favor. If you do the link, when you get the link, send it to me in a DM because you can't put it in; it'll block it.
Okay,
but I can put it in.
Yeah, this is the problem Gray and I had with the link. It expires every 7 days unless you're tier 3, which really sucks. So that's why
we got the new one.
We said to people all the time, just search on YouTube, Google for Extreme Gaming Podcast. It'll certainly be the exact same for the Fleet Ops Discord. I'm sure if you search for it, you'll find it as well. But if we get a link that lasts a week or whatever from Triptych, then we'll stick it in the chat. No worries at all.
And also, if you search for Fleet Operations, you'll get the Fleet Ops website, which has a permanent Discord link on it.
There you go.
Okay.
A website. We need to work on that, Gray. Get a website. I'm just lazy. That's why there's no website in the site interviews at the moment. That may change in the future.
We're too famous without it. So
speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. Your head will never fit out the door after this podcast. So,
right. What do you think I got this back?
Moving on to a game that had an update. It actually came out in June the 5th, so we missed it in the last podcast.
Not long ago at all.
I actually added the notes right after the podcast, and that was Enshrouded got another update called Melodies of the Mire. Now, Gray's ahead of this game, further ahead than myself. I have that problem at the moment where all my boxes of inventory are a complete mess, and I've got OCD Triptych, so I'm actually the guy that spends half an hour, 1 hour rearranging everything to make sure it's nice and neat. So I haven't played as much as Gray has. He is done pretty much all the missions. I've still got some to go.
No, well,
yeah,
if you're talking about the original part or the Myers,
no, original part for sure. You done all them because I haven't unlocked that yet, because while I got to the level cap of 25, I haven't done all the other bells and whistles to get, for example, the most advanced glider, the most advanced weapons and armor and stuff. So I've still got that to go. However, Gray has, so he had unlocked Melodies of the Mire. Have you played any of the Melodies of the Mire content yet, Gray, that you can comment on?
Yeah, I played probably, I'm guessing 5 hours or more, 6 hours, something like that. But part of that time, though, is just kind of getting back into the system and getting used to it, because when you don't play it for a little while, you have to start remembering and everything. But basically, it's a lot of fun. It's very much like kind of almost where you left off in a way. Apparently, they did this new. I really, it's more of an expansion. They're calling it an update, but to me, it's almost an expansion. I have no idea how big this map is going to be. The original map is pretty big. This particular area, I'm sure, is not going to be as big as the original map, but it looks like it's going to be big enough. So I started traveling into the Myers, and all of a sudden you start realizing what the differences are. There's a video on YouTube that I'll show you real quick, but basically what it is you're going into almost like it sounds when it talks about the Myers. That they're, instead of there being like water and lakes and stuff like that, you have basically lakes full of mud and slime, that kind of stuff. I didn't know what that was all about. I figured, I saw something shiny I wanted to go get.
You walked into it and died.
I walked into it. All of a sudden, the next thing I know, like quicksand, man, I am down fast.
Well, you can't get out. You can't get out. Well, as soon as you went in and you started losing health, did you not think, let's attempt to jump away? Does it grab you? I tried. You can't move?
I was jumping and it was accomplishing a little, but not enough, man. It just took me down. That was the end of that. So now I know, like, okay. Now, I don't know if they built something into it. I'm not that far yet to get around it or actually over it. I mean, obviously, you have your glider, so you can glide over it. But I like it, though, because it gives you, when you're gliding over it, you're not always the best flyer when you're gliding. So if you don't really fly properly, you'll end up crashing into the mire or bouncing off a tree and going into the mire, and you're dead. So, and as I've been progressing in the map a little bit, I was over by several buildings, some new buildings that are on the ground, but a lot of them are deteriorated and messed up. So as you fly to them, you may not be able to fly to a roof. You may be able to fly it only on a piece of jutting concrete or stone. And so you have to fly and try to land on something this wide. So otherwise you might fall right into the mire. Now, on top of the mire killing you, there's also a particular beast, or beasts plural, that live in the mire. So I didn't know that until I got kind of close and this thing starts shooting me. And I'm just like, he's spitting these balls of yuck and it comes after you.
Nothing worse when it spits like balls at you.
Nothing. So I was just like, I wonder how many. No, never mind. So I just like, okay, great. So obviously you can take them down with, long range arrows and things like that. They said to play this particular, I'm going to call it expansion, whatever you want to call it, is that you have to be at least level 13, I think they said.
That low?
13,
wow, okay.
13 to 15. Yeah, I was a little surprised because some parts of the map that I played, you have to be like 25, and even then it's not good enough. But here they're saying you need to be at least 13 to 15. So I'm not going to say that it's easy for me to beat the enemies, but it's a little bit easier maybe than some players who haven't gotten that far, perhaps. So I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's, if you have the right weapons, you'll be okay. The hardest part is just dealing with trying to get around, because you really want to go after something and it's tucked in a corner and it's surrounded by this stuff.
I guess
that you're going to die.
I guess a way around that is there'll be a lot more grappling points for you to get about as well. Yeah, as well as ledges that you jump on and whatnot. Yeah,
there's grappling points, not a lot. And as far as leverage, places where you can stand on, or there's not a lot of those either. And the problem is, unless you're high enough, you can't tell whether the ruins that you're in have a roof or not, which I think is great because I don't want to know. You know what I mean? So you have to try to get up higher to see if you fly over, are you going to land on a roof or just drop right into the mud? you really don't know sometimes. So it's kind of like a hit or miss. I'm having fun actually just trying to like maneuver or find a high point where I can just glide over to the next building. And of course, with the way the game is made, it's such a great game. And this is these devs and the ones that made Valheim are a good example of how you can make a game that is absolutely fantastic on a budget that's nothing near the AAA's.
Oh yeah,
and so forth. I mean, they've sold millions of copies of this game, and this game is the most fun I've played of this type game in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And this apparent expansion is no different. I'm having a blast just trying to figure it out. Oh, the other thing, I'm sorry. The other part besides what I was explaining is there's also the trees. So now what they've done is
you put trees in the game? Really? I missed that.
Oh, these are trees and tree forts. There's like the creatures that build the tree forts build them like way up there.
Uh-huh.
So you basically got to find your way up, and as you're going up, of course they're coming down to kill you. So you got to find a vantage point where you can take out some of them or whatever. And of course, if you fall off, where do you go? If you don't fly in time, you go into the mud and die. It's but climbing up the trees is kind of fun, and some of the spires that you go, you have to unlock the spires so you have a travel point. Some of them are partially wrecked now. So as you're going up the spire, it isn't so easy about just jumping on a pad and transporting or going upstairs. All of a sudden, you'll go up the stairs and you can't go any further. And the only way you can get it to the next set of stairs is you literally have to go through a wall that's gone now and has overgrowth of trees and garbage. And you have to be able to kind of jump and maneuver around the branches to try to get around to the next set of stairways. And you can easily fall and
die. It's a running theme.
Fly away or die or go into the mire and you're drowning again.
This is top left of the map. Am I right in saying, Gray? That's where we're going
top
this
left.
time, yeah?
Correct. So I'm having a blast with it, and I've only played the few hours. So I'm hoping the map is a decent size. They haven't told us, so you just kind of go and whatever, run your missions. But I'm hoping that they keep this up because I'm sure they're obviously working on the entire map. If you look at it, if you zoom out as much as you can and then try to move right, it's really big. I mean, I would say that when they first came out with it, we only covered 25%. That
was still big within its own right, Gray.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now this is another, I don't know, a few more percentage, I guess, depending on how big this is. So they've got a long way to go, which is fine with me. I mean, I think it's great. So far,
so good.
I'm really enjoying it, and they've done a lot of fixes and balancing. Supposedly, one of the classes, I believe, is allowed to now wield double daggers. So you can do dual wield. That's not my class, but I don't know if they're going to introduce other things for the other classes. But that's something you couldn't do before.
Okay.
But now apparently you can. So I'd advise go out there, if you have the game, download and play because it's a lot of fun. It really is.
Okay. Triptych, have you heard of this game Enshrouded? Like, I know you're an RTS guy. Do you play any other genres of game outside that? I mean, this is a kind of survival building type game that Gray and I and a lot of other people are into. Does it ring a bell?
No, I haven't played this particular one. So obviously, I imagine it's like, oh, is it like Terraria or is it more like, what was the zombie one that was recently? I think it's
I don't know what you can compare it to, really.
You could compare it to Valheim, Rust, Nightingale. Yeah. It's an open world. It's got MMO elements to it, but it's survival. Yeah. I like the story element to games, but obviously the building and the going exploring the map as well. That kind of thing.
Is it over the shoulder or is it top down?
It's 3D. It's just normal 3D. So it's third person.
Yeah, it's not top down.
It's third person in this respect here. I know some games can go between first and third perspective, but this one's just third. I think I prefer that. It's weird having first person. First person should be designed for FPS games or shooter games, should I say? In my opinion.
Well, I think developers are learning a lot of things you can do with third person that they didn't really explore that much before.
Yeah.
Because like with third person, especially if you're in a scenario where like your character has a gun or a weapon, but they're not initially trained with it, you can have things like they turn around really slowly, or when they're moving, their reticule like bounces around. Like they're really bad at doing it. And that's a lot harder to do with first person because people generally expect the reticule to stay in the middle of the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, another example of that would be Helldivers 2 recently.
Oh yeah.
Is a strength where like you're crawling on the ground or you're running and like your reticule's just like swinging all over the place, and it's more chaotic.
Yeah.
Have you played that game? I guess I haven't. I haven't played it yet. I've been wanting to.
I haven't played it.
Oh, Helldivers 2?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic primary gameplay loop. The balance team have been making it progressively harder since it released, which has been it's difficult because people enjoy balance buffs, they don't enjoy balance nerfs. So it's because the idea is it's the desolate world where you're being swarmed by aliens. So it's a very fun experience. And like I mentioned, it has a lot of that where like your character, even though you're a guy with a gun in basically Starship Troopers, like it has a lot of those silly moments where like, oh, if you hold down the shoot key while you're turning, your gun just might like swing wildly and shoot your friend. And when you throw grenades or you throw little balls that like call in orbital drops for items or ordnance, but when you throw one, it might stick to the surface it hits and it might bounce. And so it has a lot of built-in hilarity when you're playing with friends.
I've heard that because what you just mentioned, they actually say they like it because it makes the game different, and stuff. I've also heard of dropships landing on friends and killing them as well.
Yeah,
and stuff.
It nails the theme of fundamentally kind of awful if you think about it, but also like it's all like upbeat and hilarious and like what's the word like almost like indoctrinated basically, like your characters are all gung-ho and they everything is like cheerful despite the world around them, and like that's really fun to play because that's how human beings play as well, right? You're in a horror game with friends, but you're all joking around with each other.
I definitely got to take some time and try it because it has a big fan base apparently, and I keep seeing gaming articles about it and things that they do and stuff like that. It sounds pretty wild.
Just finishing off really quickly on the Enshrouded game we were talking about. We've said this before, Gray and I, but I'm glad. I like where they're at the moment with this game because it's an early access game, and the thing is, I'm trying to limit this moan and complain because it will take over otherwise. Gray and I and anyone else that's been on the podcast with us have complained about the state of PC ports and or early access games, and a lot of people just put early access on it and think it's an excuse to just put in some minimal crap and then leave it and do nothing with it. A good example of that, actually no, a full 1.0 release example of that to make it even worse would probably be Ark, the game before, and then the UE5 version that they brought out is just, thankfully I've got a decent graphics card to brute force my way through, but not everyone does, and it's a janky mess. The early access games and the ports can often be awful because the money's in the PC market, the console market. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But I'm predominantly a PC player, and then when Enshrouded came out, I was concerned about how well it would do, and that game was something like, was it $30, $25, £25, £20, something like that. It was, I struggled to find a single problem with that game. I swear to God, there wasn't people clipping into the ground, clipping through walls. I think the only thing was the performance had to be optimized because I had to brute force through that. But I have no problems with that when it comes to an early access game. The guys made it enjoyable to play at a comfortable 60 FPS, and you had a really good time. And then they showed the roadmap of improving things, bringing out this content. And this is part of the reason I love PC gaming. We get games cheaper when they work. They're not janky. And Enshrouded is a perfect example of a really good early access PC game. Long may it continue, because it's a great example to the rest of them. But yeah,
Yeah, when you play Enshrouded, you don't even totally forget that it's supposed to be early access. It's not even in version 1 yet.
Yeah,
and the game plays like a AAA game, and there's not a whole lot of problems with it.
They're really not.
So
I struggle.
Yeah.
Great. You scored out that information, but there's one thing to briefly mention.
Sure.
We didn't cover last time. Summer Games Fest. So we never covered everything last time because it was so much content. It would have been the podcast would have been too long. I caught up. That's the one I didn't watch. I haven't watched the Ubisoft Forward because Gray told me what I already knew. I wouldn't have enjoyed it. The Xbox showcase was easily the best of all of them, and that's the best. Yeah. That's the best showcase from Xbox I've seen in a long time. Lots of great games coming, all in Game Pass for the most part. Excellent. But the Summer Games Fest one, which I thought would be the biggest, was actually the poorest. I scanned through it today, Gray. Oh my God. I'm just going to say it was crap. It was boring. I was falling asleep. The games were not... None of the trailers got me excited. Do you, at least Gray, initially remember anything from Summer Games Fest that tickled your fancy?
I mean, I have a list here because I printed it out. I didn't want to forget. But basically, they actually released or had more games to show than even the Xbox showcase, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing is a lot of them were like, I don't care for. And I'm not knocking it for, other people that do care for it. But some of the ones that I thought were interesting was they showed Lego Horizons Adventure, which is a Lego version of Horizon Forbidden West. And
will you get that? Will you play it? I know you love Horizon. I
mean, I like Lego from the aspect that they're funny. I've seen some of the movies, and they have some really good, it's like a comedy basically.
But you've all grown up now.
Yeah, but as far as the game, I'm not like, I'm not going to probably go out of my way. But it is a big deal for people that like this kind of games. So that's something that they've been waiting for. Okay. And I have heard that it's quite good. They also are coming out with Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. Now,
what?
When I had heard about this, I thought it was an expansion to the game.
Uh-huh. So
I was going to go like, oh, cool, because I really like the main game. I played through the whole thing. I spent a lot of hours on it. I loved it. But all it is playing Quidditch. They made the Quidditch game that they had in the game.
What is Quidditch?
Quidditch is basically like riding your broom and doing all kinds of different like Olympic events, I guess, for the sorcerers.
It's like Mario at the Olympics, but Harry Potter style.
Yeah. Oh, so when I saw that, I'm going like, I'm not saying there's not an audience for it. Some people really like that, but I'm looking at it and going like, oh man, it's not going to be an expansion. They're not going to do anything with the story, nothing. And I'm sitting there going like, yeah, okay, bye. Now they are going to make a second game, but that's 2-3 years out or more. Star Wars.
Sorry, Graham. Just acknowledging Shellbug there. Yeah, Shell. I never cease to amaze her. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I understand its obsession and its popularity around the world. I just think grown adults playing with their wands and their brooms is no good. And then when the game that came out like a year ago, 2 years ago, that was amazing success, and I can respect the game and the quality of it without enjoying it. I can go, yeah, I can see why that's popular. But then to bring out a game just on that Quidditch or whatever the hell it was, I'm just like, nah. That should have been an add-on, Gray. That should have been something, or a paid DLC for the game, in my opinion. But anyway, you've got other games to mention as well, didn't you?
The other thing that was a little confusing was they also put in a couple of games that were Ubisoft. I don't really understand why. They showed Star Wars Outlaws, but
it's a Summer Games Fest. It's for everything and everyone.
Well, but it tends to lean way more right. But it tends to lean way more on indies for sure.
Well, yeah,
and other games that are more or less obscure, I guess, from our viewpoint, because we don't always see all of them. But there's still some other stuff. They have Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2.
That looked decent.
That looked good. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that. So that's kind of neat. They also showed Batman Arkham Shadow. The bummer for me though is I didn't realize it was VR until the end. And they go like, it's virtual reality. And I go, I don't have a virtual reality setup. And I'm like, because I was looking forward to playing the game, and I'm like,
Remember when they used to lead with that? Like that would be the first thing they said about the game is it's VR. Now there's like they slip it in at the end. By
the
way,
thing
it's
that
VR.
irks me though is put out a version that's not VR for us that want to play it and not want to play it on VR.
Why?
Kind of like because I want to play it, but I don't want to play it in VR.
Oh well, but they need to listen. When they design games in the future, they have to pay attention to Gray's needs, right?
That's right. They need to. Well, that's almost like what was it? Steam that put out Alex, right? Was that it?
Half-Life Alex, yeah.
Half-Life Alex, right? Okay, so that was only VR,
The
and that
best
was
VR
bummer
game
too to me
ever.
because that's what I keep hearing. And someday I'll probably get into it. But the point is I wanted to play that game, and then I find out they don't have a version that's not VR. So there goes that down.
They technically do. This is coming down to the whole modding scene again.
I know.
They designed that game on purpose to be VR from the ground up. They had no plans to bring out a normal version. And I respect them for that. They stuck to their guns.
Mm-hmm.
That is the best VR game that ever existed. They done a really, really good job. They are the kings. They brought out one of the first major VR headsets, so I expect that to be the case. But the modding scene came in and took it apart and made it playable on a keyboard and mouse or a controller. And I haven't tried it, but from what I know, from what I found out, it's very close to the VR experience. It's very enjoyable. So maybe that will happen with Batman. It probably will, because Batman's a very popular franchise.
I can always trust the modding community to do something good.
See, it's not you modding guys you've got a use. Don't worry.
That's it. Some of the other highlights were it was only a teaser trailer, but Sid Meier's Civilization 7 is gonna come out. Now a lot of these games most are not going to be this year. Some. But the majority, I would say probably 2/3 are all 2025. And some of them don't know when in 2025. They just say 2025, so it could be anytime. So I'm always looking forward to that because I've been playing Civilization for the last, probably since number 3. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what that's all about. There was another game which I thought looked really interesting. It's called Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah, that looked cool. Is that like Planet? Cool. Is that like Planet of the Apes meets Ghost of Tsushima?
Meets Japanese feudal times or something? Yeah. I guess. I mean, but it's cool. It looked very cool. So I kind of thought that was neat. Asgard's Wrath, which I had no idea what that was, but
that's the game, the VR game that came free if you ordered a Quest 3 up to a certain point. It's supposed to be the biggest, longest VR game that's ever come out, and it's I haven't played it, but it's supposed to be really, really good. So
cool. There's going to be other things for Dragon Ball people. There's a new game of that coming out. There's I'm trying to look at the ones that I kind of liked. For Power Ranger fans, they got Mighty Morphin's Power Rangers.
I'm a Power Rangers fan, and that looked actually kind of cool because the last Power Rangers game was a really shit knockoff of like Street Fighter, but this is like a knockoff of Streets of Rage, which I could get behind because it's the same graphic style, the same format. I know I just slagged adults who love Harry Potter, but then again, I'm an adult and I love Power Rangers. Don't watch it anymore, I must admit.
See?
But I'm a big fan of that from when I was a kid. So,
come on, you don't
really quickly. Sorry, Gray. Shell's talking about Fable. Fable, I don't think was in the Summer Games Fest. Tell me if I'm wrong. That was the Xbox Game Fest that was the covered
Xbox,
last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a big fan. So
we talked about it last week, Shell, but you weren't around, I think, for that one. But that is something that we've been waiting for. Shell's been waiting for a long time. She always reminds us about that. But finally, they did give it a year. Not a date exactly, but a year. 2025 is supposed to come out next year, right? So from going from the teaser that was over a year ago, I think, and with no date, we finally actually got to see something and see a little bit of gameplay.
Tiny bit. More CGI nonsense, though, rather than...
Well, there was some gameplay, not a lot, but, still...
Yeah.
We're all hoping that they keep it up, the quality up, so we can all enjoy it. There's other ones I can't get into too many more. The Sonic game coming out, the new one. They're doing a Dune Awakening. Did you see the trailer?
Yeah, it looked decent.
It didn't look bad.
That looked the graphics looked decent. The premise of it looked decent. There just wasn't much. I don't think there was any gameplay, so we need to actually see more of that. Yeah. But I like the whole it was like a what if. You know, if it hadn't been quite, if Paul had been a girl instead of a guy, because if you watched it, you understand it's very important which kind of sex you are in that respect. But that looked decent, so I'm interested in that coming out, Gray.
Yeah. I thought that, again, it was cinematics, but the sandworms and everything all look great and stuff. The only thing I noticed, though, in the game, though, is with the sandworms, they went, again, back to the more of the book look of the sandworm as opposed to the movie look. The movie look didn't have the wide mouth of the 3 wings sticking out of the mouth. You know, like in the movie, those were gone, but the mouth was there. So it was like a worm with one big mouth. But they went to the book version more on this game, which was kind of interesting considering they just did the movie. But, you know, that's okay. What else we got?
You're not going to read out every single game, are you, Gray?
No, I'm just trying to pass on the ones that were pretty good. I mean, that's Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out as well.
Not my cup of tea, but a very popular franchise from Capcom. So, fair enough.
And there's going to be an update to Power World, which a lot of people that have really gone nuts on Power World. So there's going to be an update to that too, coming out. That's pretty much it for the highlights, I guess. But there was some good stuff in there that I was impressed.
I have a question for both of you chaps. You know, I know these events are looking for content, you know, like Jeff Keighley on Summer Game Fest and whatever other events come out from Sony, Microsoft, whatever. But I think I know Gray's opinion in this one, but you can pipe in wherever you want, Gray. But I'm looking for Triptych's opinion in this one. Mm-hmm. For one, you get news on a game, and a lot of the time it seems to be more in-game engine stuff and or CGI stuff and not much gameplay. I know games take a long time to develop, I get that, but what I hate is being told any more than a year in advance of a game coming out, right? You have a year max to tell, and that makes sense from a, you know, like a economic side of things, because you want to drum up the interest and get your marketing budget arranged. So maybe 6 months is too little, but I think people should keep it secret and not mention anything until a year before and then get hyped up, because then you get the delays. You have people excited, and for what? Like a CGI or a graphic or something. I don't get it. Triptych, what's your opinion on that? Does that piss you off? Is that a tease? Do you not mind? Do you want them to just shadow drop that stuff?
I mean, I was about to say I completely agree. Like that's too long out. And then I remembered when they put out the Halo Infinite trailer, and it was like 3 years out, and I was so stoked. So I was like, there are games I'll forgive, you know, for that. I think in general, a big part of it is the hype train, right? Like, it's the marketer's job to create hype. But if you make too much hype, then the bubble sort of collapses in on itself because people start to now, wait a second, could it be that good? And that was honestly why the Xbox one was so crazy. You know, like Space Marine 2, Gears of War, and the Doom game. People know there's substance behind it, and when you know there's substance, you'll forgive a lot more. You know, like, I mean, shoot, if there was.
The thing about Doom, since you mentioned it, which I really liked, is that they kept that thing under wraps because we didn't know anything about it. And then all of a sudden, about a month before the Xbox thing, they're talking about Doom, and I'm what?
Yes, but great, you're right. But they said 2025, and you know, Sod's Law, it will be at the arse end of 2025, right? I mean, if it'll probably be, I can't see it being the first half. It'll probably be autumn, winter. If it's at the first half, great. It's that 1 year window I was talking about. But you know it's going to be at the end of 2025. Although it looks pretty good and polished.
Hopefully not. It looks very good. So it's I can't wait to play it.
We're big Doom fans here. We're massive Doom fans. It's one of the few games, Triptych, that I would pay top dollar pound for on day one. And I don't normally do that. Thank God for Game Pass.
They've nailed the quality so well. And that is what it means to have consumer goodwill, right? Like, it comes from games. They're like at least 2 really good Doom games in now, and you'll forgive it. Yeah. And so on what you said about future releases, I definitely will be a whole lot less forgiving of a preview for like an indie title or an unknown title that's like 2 years out, and it's like, but I don't know you. Like, not like Doom, you know.
So what's your window, Triptych, then? Like, in general, I know you might talk about something like Halo, which is more massive, so like 2 years before they give you a quick tease or something. But like in general, would you say like more than 1 year is taking the piss, or what's your ideal time period?
Yeah, that's about the limit. I mean, yeah, I'd say 2 years is definitely the limit. And then
that's long.
And like I say, if it's over even 1 year, if it's not even more than 6 months, I'd start to be like, yeah, but like if they were releasing like a new XCOM game, I'd be like, I'd forgive a year.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the Elder Scrolls 6. That was the worst one. 6 years, and they celebrated the 6th year of the trailer.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, they did it to be sarcastic. They go, hey,
wait,
that one was the same as since it started. It was never going to come
wait until I get to Metroid Prime 4 and the Nintendo Direct. That'll be the prime example of that one, boys and girls. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I was curious on your opinion on that one. Was that great?
The other thing that was ridiculous is in a lot of the videos that we saw, not a lot, but enough, in the Xbox showcase that didn't even have a date or a year. So when you see that, you're like, oh boy. So now you're talking 2026, 27, 28. Like, I don't even want to know.
The Xbox people, they knew what they had. Like, they knew they had pure gold.
It was. Yeah. It was such a good... I was like, this is gold all the way through. It's like world premiere. That's all they kept saying. World premiere. Available day one Game Pass. And I'm just like, yes, this is brilliant.
I don't... With the exception of... they showed Assassin's Creed Shadows because they have an agreement with Ubisoft. And aside from that game, I don't think there was any game that wasn't day one. I mean, almost every single thing they showed, day one. I'm sitting there going, like,
and another example of that confidence, you mentioned Civilization 7.
Right.
But as anyone anyone who's played the games knows, a Civilization game isn't really finished until about 3 years after it releases.
That sounds like Bethesda game.
It's really the second or third expansion that makes the Civ game like really good.
Yeah, because they add in new things. They do a lot of balancing and stuff like that, and
they have decades of goodwill behind them, so they can. I mean, it's
they
like
get away with it.
Early access without early accessing. Well, you just release a full version of the game that's like half the final content.
But at least it comes out. I mean,
exactly. One, they have the goodwill, and like they keep making good games, and the game's good eventually. So, like they've built that confidence.
Wild.
Okay, we will. Thank you for your opinion on that one, guys, because it was a bugbear of mine, and I'm glad you kind of share my view on it. Gray, you've got some news about Far Cry 7, which I didn't think had been officially or even rumored to be announced, but there's something there.
No, they knew they were good. They knew they were coming with a Far Cry 7. That wasn't anything unusual. But there's been some leaks coming out, and a lot of us are wondering how true some of these things may be. And one of the things that they're doing, which is not the norm, so to speak, is that they said they're, and again, this is a rumor, but from my understanding, I guess it's a pretty good rumor. And they're going to introduce a time limit in the game. So apparently you have to get through all the main missions and the end mission within 72 hours, in-game hours.
Right.
So if you don't accomplish it, then you essentially failed or whatever. I'm assuming, although I don't know this, that they're going to give you an option after you finish that, and let's say you failed, to be able to go back, and there is no limit any longer, and you can do whatever you want. But that's unusual because I haven't seen a game do that. I don't know if I've ever seen it, or if it did, it's been a very, very long time. So I think some people are not going to like this. But I also think other people will. I played most of the Far Cry games. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Only because most of the Far Cry games tend to be more open world, so I like to go and roam around. So now if I'm stuck to a 72-hour limit, I'm going like, well, now you're going to force me to play the whole main campaign, and then I got to go back to eliminate all the forts and other things and stuff that I like to do. So I'm kind of like...
I don't understand why they would do it. I don't understand it. It just makes no sense, man.
They're saying basically that they need to shake up the franchise a little bit to do something different and new, I guess. So this is what they're.
It's a risky pivot, but I definitely would get behind it because, like, going the Outer Wilds, like Ocarina of Time style of game, I believe, and I don't play Far Cry games. Like, I haven't played every single one. I have friends who do. The series has definitely come into a bit of flack for becoming a Watchtower collection game, And I think they can still, like, once you beat the campaign, you can probably still have that entire experience as well.
Yeah,
but I think it's the kind of innovation that they need, because I think, I'm sure the hardcore gamer, like the hardcore fans, would keep playing it for sure. But I think the not Far Cry people have kind of lost a bit of the magic of Far Cry, and something like this is probably the kind of risk they need to make to try to make a really good version.
Lost the magic of Far Cry. Are you trying to say it's maybe rinse and repeat a bit too much there, Triptych?
I mean, yeah, for people who like
see, Gray, told you,
who aren't into the game, yeah,
don't matter to me. Well, we want a shooter. This has been an ongoing argument, like between Trevor and I and some other people in our community. If you're a rabid fan like I am, every Far Cry game that comes out...
No, but this is what Ubisoft do in general. They do the same with Assassin's Creed a lot.
No, exactly. You hear the same thing. You hear the same thing on Assassin's Creed in some ways, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, if the game is good, even if it's some rinse and repeat, I don't care, because I like the rinse and repeat. I want to do that stuff. I just want new missions. In other words, if I were to take Origins, I thought was one of the best Assassin's Creed games, and you told me tomorrow that they just introduced 3 new campaigns or something into the game, I would be like jumping up and down. Even though those campaigns would have some of the sameness because I played the game, I don't care. If it's something new to sink my teeth into, a new story, a new mission, I'm there. I'm good. Because and the same thing with Far Cry. That's the way I think about that too. I just love going in there and doing all the stealthy things.
And I think the beauty of the 72-hour limit is you don't lose anything, right? Because you could have that mode and you could just have an alternate game mode where you turn it off. Or you could have, like, after you beat the campaign, you keep playing in the world. And so, like, it's a risk that you can take without actually stepping on the toes of the people who like the formula too much. So it lets them innovate without losing what they've got right now.
Right, exactly. Trying to please both sides, which is fine.
Is this going to be a mode, Ray? Sorry, is this going to be a mode or actually the main only way to play? Because you know what that sounds like? That sounds like a trial that you haven't paid for the game. You have 72 hours to play it, and then you're screwed. But I've just paid good money for that game, or I've got it on their pass. It's madness unless it's some optional mode.
Can you imagine if they actually gave you the game for free and said, if you make it to through the mission, then you have to pay for it?
So Ubisoft,
like, oh no,
I wouldn't put it past them. They're the studio that have a quadruple A rated game. This is the whole Skull and Bones thing, Triptych, that I like taking the piss out of. They came out with the Skull and Bones thing, and they're like, this game's, the CEO, he said, this game's great, what are you talking about? We have so much time and effort. I was like, you've delayed that game so much that it's been on the cards even longer than bloody Fable or almost Metroid Prime 4, and then you call it a quadruple A. That's not how it works, man. You can't make up your own category rating for a game. Nope.
I mean, that's ridiculous. And they waited so long, they just shot themselves in the foot, because Sea of Thieves has done it all. Yeah, so and I agree that, Skull and Bones looks more realistic, but aside from that one factor, it's Sea of Thieves, except it's not. It's maybe, if you're stretching it, it might be equal to it, but it's probably not even equal to it. Sea of Thieves is just churning along, man. I didn't go out of my way to buy the game, so
a lot of it comes down to the substance too. Like I said, because if you think about it, you would forgive things from certain game devs that you wouldn't for others. Like if the Doom devs called it a quadruple A and they said the last A stands for Annihilation, we'd all be like, sure, whatever.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because the game is good.
Or they just come out with something that for each A, right? Like Avalanche, Assimilation, Annihilation, just kind of like.
So like people will go along with the hype if the game is good.
That is true. That's true.
Wasn't the if I remember right, wasn't the word Doom, wasn't that a stand for something originally? I thought it did.
I think on the original CD, it had like periods after the 4 letters.
It did, and I was that's a good.
I was way too young.
That's a trivia question. We're gonna
just a quick shout out to. Tell me how to pronounce your name, man, because I'm awful. Is it Scythe 70?
Yeah.
Thank you for Scythe. I know you're in our Discord. Thank you for following on the old Twitchers as well. Thank you, mate. Yes, I got it. Yes, nailed it. Pat on the back. Gray, have you anything else you want to add to the Far Cry 7 hype, or do you want to talk about your
Well, the
best
only thing
strategy
they were
games?
saying is that if the rumored thing about a time limit comes into play, then they're going to do a lot of things with weather, I'm hearing. So in other words, the weather's going to change realistically here and there to make it a little harder in some missions and other missions. So there's going to be a lot of dynamics going on. If it is a time limit, you're going to start feeling the pressure of time on making your decisions. So some of your decisions might be a little
How are you going to
quicker than
handle
normal.
that, Gray? Because I know you like to take your time and maybe hide a little while from the
I
bad
don't
guys
know.
until they run away.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
there goes my stealth game. Well, it depends. See, games like that, I usually play 100 to 150 hours. So
Wow. You
that's
get your money's
that's
worth.
because I'm doing everything in the game. I'm going to all the different ports and whatnot. And then sometimes I like to challenge myself. Like I'll go in with weapons that are not my top weapons and to see if I can get through it, and stuff. So it's fun that way. But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
that's pretty much it as far as Far Cry goes.
Okay.
Just to cut in that topic a bit, though,
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of room for innovation in time-based things that like the AAA industry isn't hitting right now.
Mhm.
There's the Outer Wilds formula for one of them, just the repetition. But man, real life clocks. People really like real life clocks, and you can do they turn into such cool stories. I don't know
Yeah,
which one it
24,
was.
the TV show.
Well, one of the
Yeah.
one of the Metal Gear Solid games. Well, one of the Metal Gear. I don't know if it was. I'm going to
Such a
butcher it,
good
but
franchise.
it has an alternate boss who's like a really, really old sniper.
Is that Gray?
and
Is he a Gray gamer?
Yeah, that must be me. I
So
like
you
snipers.
go into the forest with him and you have this sniper
alright.
battle with him, and it's completely optional. But the way it's optional is if you wait 3 days real world time or change the time setting on your PlayStation, he dies of old age
Oh,
and
really?
you don't have to fight him.
Oh well,
And
Gray.
it was one of the growing up, that was one of the coolest stories. Like a kid would come in and he's like, I couldn't beat the boss after 3 days and he just died. and those kinds of game mechanics that use real world clocks for progression and day night cycles, there's so much potential there for cool ideas that gamers love.
Yeah, nowadays it's when you play those games, you get the night cycle, and what do? You go to sleep and skip right through the night and go back in the
You
day.
skip the
No,
night.
but that's not cheating. That's actually a mechanic of the game. Like
Oh, I
changing
know.
Changing your PlayStation date and time is very naughty. I don't like. I'm not a fan of that. Like Animal Crossing for the Switch, I played that during lockdown because it was such a popular game. People would change this time and the date and the seasons to get where they wanted to go, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. It wasn't. This is vanilla Trev again, boring. It wasn't the way the devs designed it. Like, my favorite game in the whole world is Rust, right? I never play any of the mod versions of that or any other mods. It's just OG vanilla because that's the way the devs designed it. But your point still stands, Triptych. Bringing in different game mechanics is always cool and interesting. Unless you're Hideo Hajima. That guy is a couple of dilithium crystals short of a warp core. When he brought out that traveling game, what's it called? Death Stranding or whatever?
Death
it's like-
Stranding.
it's like-
The story about a UPS guy delivering
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like UPS Simulator. It's like the guy's absolutely batshit crazy and bonkers. Just stick to your Metal Gear Solid. Oh, wait.
He's
you
actually
can't-
got another game coming out, too.
You can't stick to what you're good at because you fell out with Konami and you went your own separate way. So when that new Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater comes out, don't be surprised if that's very average or meh because it doesn't have him behind it. So anyway,
yeah, but there's good people out there that can do a good game. I mean, I was getting really tired of his I'm the greatest kind of attitude.
Oh, he loves himself.
When I played what was the last one that came out?
You know, he's
not
got a
really.
blow up doll of himself at home in his bed waiting for him when he comes home at night. You know it. It's just him.
Yeah, of
Picture of
course.
him on it. Yeah.
Well, the last game that I played, the Metal Gear Solid game I played, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was just like he treated it as like I like the game. The game was great, but they made it in such like a movie or something. So every time it went into another major adventure start,
Yeah.
they would just come on. He would come on like a movie. This is it. and written by, directed by, and done by.
So I just want to play the game already. God damn it!
And his name is everywhere, just like I did everything, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yep.
Like, just get to the game, please. Like,
Hideo, we'll have a simulator game based on him at some point in the future. Great.
of course.
Moving on, my friend. The 12 best strategy games for beginners, which I'm curious as to why you got this as a point. I'm curious. Go for it, and I'll be right back.
I kind of picked this out because of Triptych, because
I can talk about this
because he's into the RTS games, so I figured I would just go through it. And it was kind of interesting because I tend to like to go for some of the lists, and it gives us something to sink our teeth into about or disagree with or whatever. But this was funny because when they said 12 best strategy game, but specifically for beginners, I was going like, okay, so that's a little different.
Yeah, I was reading that and my hackles were raising. I was like, oh, they didn't say that. Oh, how could you?
Well, without having to go through explanation of every game, we're kind of going to go through the list a little bit and maybe get quick opinions of what we thought. And they kind of cheat a little bit, though, because the first game they bring up is 4X games, and they go Civilization 6 and Endless Space 2. That's 2 games. So I'm hoping that means that there's only 10 games left to go, or whether they cheated.
Well, it's 2 games per category, right?
Oh, okay.
Which is clever, and it's honestly strategy games are very hard to recommend to people because you don't know how intense they want to go. You don't know how much they like spreadsheets.
The levels of RTS, and I think that's why I like it. I started out in those kind of games, and I still play some of them. I'll admit I don't play as many of them as I used to, but I still do. And yeah, there's certain levels of how deep you want to get with everything that happens. The thing that I kind of liked, and we're talking about with the first 2 on the list, is Civilization 6 and Endless Space 2, if you didn't remember. What I liked about Civilization games is that you could go in there and you could tweak ways to win because they built that into the game. So if you wanted to do just a straight out, I annihilate them, I win, you could, but you could also do it, religiously, politically, whatever, or you could do combinations of all of them, which is even more interesting because you don't, so that way you could be, maybe you're taking the out of trying to conquer them with your army, but you're forgetting that you could also be conquered other ways. Like I played one game where I was probably about 75% of the way of conquering everything I had to do, and the next thing I know is one of the factions won the game on a total religious doctrination. I just go,
not the religious card. No.
So I just go, oh man. I say, I can't believe it. But that was cool. It was fun either way. One of the more important things in a lot of RTS games, and probably people know this, is save, and save again. If you don't save and you did something wrong, oh my God, you got to go back and run this whole thing again. That is not fun, and stuff. So I'm sitting there going like, oh, I just accomplished something. Save. Oh, I just accomplished something. Save. Because you will get caught. I tried to play Endless Space. I wasn't overly thrilled with the game though.
That was a rough one reading because I was like, I love Endless Space, but I wouldn't recommend it to a new player because
I wouldn't either.
These 2 are good on the list together because Civilization is in many ways the vanilla of the 4X genre. Like it's the most central that a lot of other games will split off from in different directions. And because, human history is the material, it's got quite a lot of material to go on, right?
Sure.
Civilizations, technologies, buildings, units, like it's already there. All they have to do is find a way to balance it and make it interesting. I was to say, if I had to recommend one, I would recommend Civilization 5 with the Vox Populi mod. Something that's cooked for how many years, and like the community has done all these balance tweaks to it. But Endless Space and even more so, there's a game called Endless Legend, which I love.
I remember that.
But the reason it's fun is because it's unique and it's different from Civilization. Like the fun thing about it are for people who've already played Civilization and see how different and unique it is. I was like, I don't know if I'd recommend that to a brand new person.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So I'm kind of curious as to why they talk about beginners. I would have gone back, like you said, to Civilization 5 or 4 if you're going to start with a beginner. But to throw them into 6 all of a sudden, okay. Whatever.
Well, but it's just like, what is a 4X beginner?
Yep. All right, the next one they talk about, that was a category of 4X. This category they're calling Grand Strategy. and they
Mhm.
decided to pick on Total War, Warhammer, and Crusader Kings 3. Now, Crusader Kings 3 I've played. I haven't
Mhm.
played Total War Warhammer, but I really like Crusader Kings 3. It's more realistic to the way things were, I guess, is the only way I can think of explaining it.
Mhm.
And you have to, it's not like just, running in there and conquering junk and then that's it. You've got to be careful because, you got to make friends. You got to do political, tactics in the background. You got to marry off your all your kids to the right people and all this
Oh,
stuff.
dear.
And then your kids can decide to go against you and all this thing.
Sounds like
So
real
it really
life to
keeps
me.
well, pretty much that's the way it ran back then. So it was kind of like more true to life or life then. So I thought that was a really interesting turn. I really did enjoy the fact that they interjected all this stuff because you really had to do things that were quite different than some of the typical, RTS kind of games. So I really did enjoy it. I don't know if you played it, Triptych, or not, but
A very little bit. It absolutely nails the theme, and it's interesting because that's something like when I was younger, I did not care about at all. I'd be like, what are the mechanics behind the game? Now I'm older, I can appreciate. It's like honestly, the theme of a game is very important, even if it's a strategy game. And yeah, Crusader Kings, it makes you feel like you're a noble in that time period. For the grand strategy, I don't know if I would recommend Total War Warhammer. Like that's the new and flashy one, but I'd probably recommend Total War Shogun 2. Just because earlier generation, simpler, and the strategy makes a lot more sense because you're like, my swordsmen attack the archers, and my horses have to avoid the pikes. Whereas Total War Warhammer is like, my rats with Gatling guns have to be careful because there's a chick on an eagle who can throw lightning bolts at them.
more to have to put up with. Yeah.
So really quickly, guys. Cheney's talking about a good grand strategy game. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this. Stellar. I don't know how to do it. You can do it. Stellar. I always struggle with that one. Yeah. Any of you guys played that? Is that a contender?
Oh, I have. That's an interesting one because Stellaris is in continuous development.
Oh, and so like Star Citizen. We know that. We know that one.
Right. Well, no. Like it's like Paradox style. Like I mentioned before, where like Civilization games evolve and get more expansions. Mm-hmm. Stellaris just keeps adding, and after a while, they remove things. So if it were a more traditional model, we would be playing Stellaris 3 now.
Right.
Like it's nothing like the original game. Like the Stellaris that came out release, you wouldn't even recognize it from today. They've reworked the game so much. Like say there was Stellaris, there was like Stellaris 2 and Stellaris 3, and like it has so many moving parts to it. But I would agree. Honestly, I would still say a new person could get into Stellaris. You won't know a lot of what's going on. Like you can still run a simple civilization and have a great time with Stellaris for sure. And it keeps you moving and like it's understandable. Okay. You might run into an AI player in a civilization type you don't understand, and like you want to avoid playing like Xenomorphs the first time through. But Stellaris is it's got simplicity in it for sure.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Carry on, Grant.
We'll move on to the next category. So these are city builders, and they say Banished and Cities Skylines are the ones that they should get into. I've only heard of Cities Skylines. I haven't. Game? Yeah, but strategy games are kind of broken up into areas like this.
Yeah,
Cities Skylines different.
It's a builder.
It's a builder. Yeah.
Yeah, but some people really like that. I'm not into the city builders as much, to be honest. But I've heard City Skylines is supposed to be good. I can't speak, for it.
Honestly, it's a lot of they share a lot of game mechanics with like Civilization, right? Like if a person got into Civilization, they then might decide they want to go more combat or less combat.
It's funny when you said that is that how many times have you heard when a new strategy game comes out, they go, and it's kind of Civilization-like, and it's kind of Civilization did that.
The template. Then, it's always a template. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, which is great for them. It's a lot of good free publicity, but it's just funny. Just go back to it. Or they might even say something like Age of Empires, which is good.
That screenshot, I'm assuming that's Banished. I was intrigued to try that because I know it sounds shallow of me, but it looks really good, and it just looks a little bit different. I'm a little bit like a magpie. If it looks shiny, I'm interested. Then I look at other options and I go, right, what's the gameplay like? What's the length of game, etc., etc. So I haven't played that one yet, but I would be tempted to do that one for sure.
Shell just said that she played it. She said she loved it.
Interesting,
Vanished.
Shell. Okay. Shell, you can tell me then. You do a little bit of research for me just now. Where's it available? Is it on Game Pass? Is it on Epic? Is it cheap on Steam? You'll be able to tell me where to get it and how much it'll cost me. Sorry, Gray, carry on.
She'll give you some lessons. No.
She will.
This is what they call management sims. I don't remember that term, but I get it. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 and 2 Point Hospital.
Popular games. I know Nick loves both of them. So.
Yep. 2 Point is pretty neat. I didn't play enough of it, but what I did play, I really did enjoy.
Why is it called 2 Point Hospital? What are the 2 points of this hospital?
I don't know. I don't know how they originally got the name. To be honest, there was a game prior to that. I think 2 Point. What was it? Can't remember now. The first game.
2.0.
But I like the humor. The humor was great. I mean, I just when you go to a guy that's lightheaded and his head's a bulb.
That's like, me most of the time. To be fair, like if you could see the speech bubble in real life that people are thinking that you get on cartoons and comic books and stuff like that, mine would just be like swearing emojis and light bulbs and sleepy emojis and stuff. That would be me. That would be a mess. It's a good thing we can
vanilla ice cream. Vanilla ice cream.
I'm not going to. I was going to say something else, ice cream related, Gray, but I won't. Probably moving on.
All right, so now they call it. Well, this is interesting. They call this category real-time strategy.
Real-time strategy.
Whatever.
What's their choice?
They kind of said that. They said that at the beginning, kind of. But all right, we'll go with it. They say Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition and Command and Conquer Remaster Collection. Now we're going back.
Can I go first? This is one of the times I can chip in. This is one of the few strategy games that, and I'm not talking about Age of Empires. I know it's popular, not my cup of tea. Command and Conquer, so close to my heart. I really enjoyed that when I was younger. Would get my arse kicked a lot on the online play, but I love that. And then they brought out the remaster not that long ago, and the effort they went to, was it Westwood Studios or something, owned by EA? The effort they had to go into, they were going into Triptych, they were going into like the basements of EA and trying to find old VHS tapes because the little video clips were brilliant. And then you had Tanya. Was it Tanya? It was looking smoking hot. And all these little clips, it was like a little movie along with an RTS game at the same time. Yeah. They painstakingly remastered this, the audio, the video, and any bits that were missing, they tried their best to recreate again, and even added in new content from like some new musicians and bands as well. That has got such a Spies. There you go. The best one's Red Alert 2 for me. Red Alert 2 was just
Red Alert. I remember playing. I remember playing Red Alert.
Oh, but carry on. Give me your opinion.
They said the remastered was upscaled to 4K.
It was. Yeah, it looks so good, man. Because the thing is, you had to upscale, and you had to upscale properly, because these assets were, if you tried to blow them up without proper remastering, it would just look awful, because there were such little small things that they actually look shining out. Yeah, they're like little blobs sometimes. So good, man.
I think it's really funny that old RTS games are seeing such a resurgence these days. And, because so many people, they say, oh, RTS games are dead. That was a popular topic for a while there. The problem is RTS games don't advance the way other games do, because on a fundamental level, people really don't care about the graphics that much. And a lot of the innovative features, they don't care about that much. And a lot of people, and a lot of new people are intimidated by them. And older RTS games would often acknowledge, okay, you don't know how to play real-time strategy games. We're going to give you 3 missions to help you learn how to move units around and build units, and like tutorials. And newer games don't have those nearly so much.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people really just want to play, a game that their friends play, something they can get into, something they can learn. And it's hilarious to me that they put Age of Empires 2. They're not wrong. It's how old is it? 20 years? No, it's more than 20 years now.
That's a classic.
Because Age of Empires 4 just came out not long ago.
Yeah, Age of Empires 2. I'm going to
Yeah,
embarrass
good
myself.
back.
I want to say it was before 2000. So
Could be.
it's like,
Could be.
it's probably over 25 now.
Hmm.
But like the formula hasn't improved that much, like honestly.
Well, I mean, there's obvious things in like I played 4, and yes, the graphics a little better, some of the movements a little better, some when you destroy things, it looks a little more realistic. Even some of the sound is better, where you hear the troops, "Rawr," like that or
Mhm.
whatever. So that was kind of cool, it definitely, and adds to the realism. I always considered RTS games to be kind of like years ago before you got into games like this, you always played chess, and a lot of people play
Yeah.
chess still today, of course. But that's kind of like the RTS is kind of like the PC game version of chess, but
Mhm.
probably on a much grander scale, and stuff. So, but essentially that's it. You got to really sit there and think about it. You got to make certain decisions. You got there's a lot on your plate to control, stuff like that. So it gets, in some games that I played have got the better of me, and I didn't enjoy them as much, and other ones like figured out quicker for whatever reason, and then I did enjoy them.
And
I'm surprised so far that we didn't see Homeworld 1 on
Yeah,
this list,
well,
or even Homeworld 2.
Or XCOM.
I mean,
XCOM
you
as
know,
well.
I
Yeah.
was surprised there was no XCOM on here, but
Yeah, so they missed some things here. I'm not sure.
Oh, actually, no, that
why,
would
but-
be on the turn-based, wouldn't it? The last category. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, we're up to
Jumping
that
ahead.
now. Turn-based tactics. They said Mario and Rabbids, Sparks of Hope. I
No,
don't know about that.
No.
XCOM,
And then Gears Tactics. I played Gears Tactics. That
I
is
haven't.
good.
Mm.
I enjoyed that game, so that I can understand, I guess. But when you're talking turn-based, because that's one of the oldest RTS type games and stuff, I don't understand how they could eliminate some other games in there and not put them on the list.
Have you guys ever
XCOM's
played
better.
Long War?
No.
No.
Long War is a XCOM Enemy Within mod that basically makes the campaign like 300 hours.
Oh wow.
And it's amazing. I haven't beaten it. I have a Long War campaign that I go back to.
because you
like,
only live for
every
about
6
70,
months.
80 years on
Yeah.
average. That's why you haven't
Yeah.
beaten it.
Exactly. I've been playing the same Long War campaign for at least 5 years now. And every once in a while, it's like I could play a couple missions now.
Someday I'll get through it. Yeah.
And that's the
pretty
thing is, a lot of these games they ripen, right? Like they need years of balancing and community modding to really reach the peak of their quality.
I think that's one of the things, like people that are listening out there, if you want to dabble in mods, go to ModDB, go to Nexus and stuff, and start playing around. I'm always surprised at how many mods there are. I mean, there's so many, and the mod market's grown gigantic over the last 10 years, let alone the last 20. But the last few years, it's gone exponential. I mean, people downloading mods is like way up there. Like for Starfield, I always say this, when I played Starfield, everything I pretty much put in the game, with the exception of one or two things, I only was putting in quality of life improvements. I wanted this to look a little better, or graphically a little better, or I wanted to eliminate something that was really stupid, or whatever. And I put 23 mods in Starfield to play that game when it first came out, and it was so much better with those mods in there. I was like, just simple things like I don't know if you played it, but at the beginning of the game, the NPCs, and I really wail a lot on them about this game, because they're playing with such an old engine, or they claim it's a newer version of the same engine. I don't know, but the old days where an NPC is only shot from shoulders, like maybe right here up, and that's the only view you get of them when you talk, and they're staring like right at you, like right in your face, and they just don't go anywhere. They don't move. You can't change the aspect or anything. And I'm sitting there going like, this is old school, dude, and this is a new game. So somebody makes a mod where now all of a sudden they back off. The NPCs back off, so you can talk to them like normal games now. And then the other one where they're staring at you like they're freaking zombies. There's some that were just like this, man. Their eyes are wide open. They're going, "Yee," while you're talking to them, and I'm going like, what is wrong with you? And so you load in a mod, got rid of that, so.
Gray, we have to move on just for time's sake.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we've got time to fit in the Nintendo Direct stuff. I think I'll talk about it briefly, and then we can maybe add in more next week, because I need to finish on time.
Sure.
So the Nintendo Direct was decent, and don't worry, Shell, we'll give it more love and attention next week if we have to. There was some games that were notable that I took a note of beforehand. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom which looks it's interesting. It's not your typical Zelda type game. The kind of graphic style of it as well is a little bit different, but I know that will be popular. It's the whole, you can use assets, echoes, things that you've encountered in the past, you can use to get across gaps and get from A to B. It's an interesting concept. It will sell well because it's a Zelda game. Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Wait, before you go on, am I right? Or I heard that in the Zelda game, you actually get to play as Zelda this time?
Yes. Yes,
and that's never been done. It's always been Link.
So they should
have called the game Link.
They should have changed the title. You're right. They should have changed the title around, but they didn't. There was Super Mario Party, another one. They'd sell really well. Jamboree. And then we have a couple of remasters. Donkey Kong Country Return HD. I haven't seen Donkey Kong for a while. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. That sold. They've sold well in the past as well. And then again, Lego Horizon Adventure, which is surprising because that's a Sony-owned IP. They're bringing that out on Nintendo. We didn't think we'd see that. That was a big shock. And a game that several of us played on different platforms, PC, PlayStation, Stray, which was a kind of indie game. It came out to PlayStation Game Pass day one. Really, really enjoyed that one. I would recommend that one. And last but not least, the game that's been hiding the longest, that's kind of ridiculous, is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. That was announced in 2017, the year the Switch came out. And now we get some information. Retro Studios are working on it. They squeeze literally everything out of... I swear to God, I think they get a Switch in their hand and literally try to squeeze performance out of that because the game looked pretty good from what we could see. That's next year, but at least we have something. Between 2017 and now, we had like one brief announcement and nothing else. Of course, there was other games in that list. There is always going to be other games in that list, but they were the main ones. I think the biggest one, Metroid Prime 4, hands down. And then the Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I can't remember what that Zelda game is based. It looks similar to another kind of game that came out. Shell be able to tell me the name of that Zelda game that came out that wasn't Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. It was a kind of that top-down kind of 2.5D thing. But that'll be a big seller. We know that for sure. No sign of the Switch 2 yet. We know it'll be a while yet. But yeah, if we find out more information about Metroid Prime 4 or Zelda for next week, we can add on to that as well.
Much as I don't know about this, what I did hear about this is that they think that a lot of these games, the bigger ones, are going to come out this year before the end of 2024.
Yes, that's
that are meant for the right, for the regular Switch.
Yes,
but they said they believe that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be the first game that's going to be for Switch 2.
They haven't. They've only recently said that a Switch 2 is in development. They wouldn't even confirm it until recently. That will probably be out start of next year sometime. But that's what they're saying. That'll be cross-gen.
Prime 4.
It'll be cross. Yeah, it has to be cross-gen. It's madness. It was like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was cross-gen. So was Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's just the way it's going to go. And it makes sense to me. Now, I think we can squeeze in the world-famous Lord Quiz, Gray. You have... This is a kind of slapstick thing, triptych, where we have some questions. I believe Gray was messaged these questions directly, so no one else knows the answers. Even he doesn't know them
until I click the
reveal. So we'll have 3 questions, just a bit of fun. Take it away, Gray.
Take one at a time?
Yeah,
the first one
one at a time, and we'll answer it one at a time.
Right, exactly. First one is, in Gears of War, what does COG stand for? COG, what does COG stand for in Gears of War?
See, I thought that was Community of Gamers. I thought that was I read that. I thought GOG as soon as I saw that. I was like, oh, no. I don't know anything about Gears of War. I don't know.
Well, we got ROG and we got COG and we got so many hogs.
I don't know the answer to this one because I don't play Gears of War. Anyone here?
I do, but I don't remember. So
without checking internet, triptych, do you know?
Right.
No Googles.
No Googles.
The C is combat. I'm fairly confident. But
combat of Gears. No. Okay, no.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I really want to say like combat officer, but I'm also completely wrong. Don't trust me.
Oh, believe me, we've done these quizzes where we were wrong in every one of them, and then last week
So-
we nailed every one of them. So who knows?
Gray doesn't know, which is fine because I don't know either. Triptych, are you calling it quits?
Oh man.
We'll give you a partial point if you're right about the first letter.
I would just say like combat officer general or like something. But
Sure,
I know
sounds
that's
good.
not going to be.
Sounds plausible. Go for it, Gray. Put us out our misery.
All right, it is. Oh, we're all wrong. Coalition of Ordered Governments.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Christ,
None of us can get that one.
Chance. No. Right, the second one is interesting. The second question.
Yep. And this one, in the video game series Doom, it focuses on the exploits of an unnamed space marine operating under which corporation? In the video game series Doom, it focuses on the exploits of an unnamed space marine operating under which corporation?
Is it the UNC or the UAC or something like that? I'm going to say the UNC.
Then we got to know what it stands for.
Says who? It doesn't ask for that in the question.
So it's a really long answer apparently because what I'm seeing, I'm not looking at the answer. It's blocked out, but the blackout is pretty long.
Oh no!
All right, you ready? You ready? We all come
I wanted to say UNATCO, like United National Coalition, but that's Deus Ex.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really would say UNC as well. Like
I think it's UNC, but I don't know what it stands for, so maybe I get a half point. Gray, do you want to guess?
No, I have no clue.
Right, okay, tell us. Here
we go. Oh, he put in here, if you and Trev don't know this, then you need to resign. But the answer is UAC.
Good saw. Did I not say UNC
Close.
or UAC? I did first time.
You said UN.
Back me. UNC
so you
or
got
UAC.
Two of the three letters right, but you kind of knew what it was.
Yeah, I'll take that. I don't care. I'll take that as a win. Yeah.
That's good.
Right.
All right, so last question. How many hours was the longest Mario Kart marathon according to Guinness Book of World Records? One more time. How many hours was the longest Mario Kart marathon according to Guinness Book of World Records?
I'm going to say 42 because if you watch Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's the answer to everything and anything in the universe.
The robot goes 42. Like what?
Really? 2 million years for this question? It's 42? Yeah, what are you looking for? Triptych, do you want to take a guess, a stab?
It's a stab in the dark, but knowing the way that people would do that, I'm going to guess 1,000 hours.
Oh, Jesus!
I'm gonna. I'll say 10. I have no clue, but 10 sounds good. I don't know.
Right, go for it. It won't be 10 hours, man. It's on the higher side. Go for it.
Probably not.
No, actually,
there you go. It's 40.
Yes,
40.
I'm closest.
Really?
Get in.
Yeah, you're close.
I'm taking that. That's closest to. You're never going to get it bang on the hour, man. Come on, it's like closest to. That was decent.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah,
that was decent. Right, we'll wrap up there, guys. That's been about the 2 hours or so, and I need to get off. Triptych, thank you very much, sir, for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, and feel free.
I couldn't be on a couple weeks ago when you were talking about Homeworld 3.
What Gray's going to play that. This is a problem. Gray's got 10 million games, so I'm going to encourage him to play this because while I don't want to play it, there's some games in life that, I wouldn't play much of DayZ, but I love watching it because people create the content for you, streamers and stuff. I would just be bored running Simulator. Homeworld 3 is a bit like that for me. It put me to sleep, but I would love watching it because that's entertaining for me. So, Gray, get on that soon, and then Triptych can come back and chat about that.
Hold on, just to chime in real quick about Homeworld 3. Maybe it's a good thing I haven't played it yet because when it came out, a lot of people that knew the Homeworld series like I did were disappointed, and they also expressed why they're disappointed, and they have done a couple different updates with over 100 changes. Wow. And so now supposedly it plays better than or what people expected, and stuff. Or so they were losing sales and they came in and did a whole bunch of stuff.
Well,
So
certainly, maybe at some point in the near future, if you want Triptych, you've either played this or going to play it. I'm assuming you've played it. That if Gray's played it as well, you can come back and chew the fat with him on this, and I can probably just ask interesting questions and also wind up questions at the same time, because I like doing that. So
by the way, there were mods for Homeward Tool back then. There was a Babylon 5 mod that turned the entire
try vanilla
Babylon
first.
5.
Try vanilla first, and then worry about the mods.
I didn't say I was going to do that. I'm just saying,
Give it
you
a
could
chance.
see some cool stuff.
It's just come out. Right, okay, guys, we will wrap up there. Thank you. As always, don't forget Gray's Green Room as well. It's a entertainment podcast on the YouTubes, on the podcasting platforms.
Doing one soon,
and we're doing one next week, all about entertainment and shenanigans and what's hot in the streaming wars. And don't forget the Trekway as well on the YouTube and the Twitch for reviews and gameplay and stuff as well. And if you're not part of our Discord, that literally is discord.gg/extreme gaming podcast. Come along and say hi. But until the next week, thank you very much, people. Take it easy, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. See ya.
I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. In my heart I have but one desire, and that one is you.